A warm welcome to everyone joining us from all over the world. We're here at the beautiful Slovakia Ring for round number 3 of the Formula 4 Central European Zone Championship in 2026. The sun is out, the cars are out on track, and we're ready for race number 1 of this incredible weekend here at the Slovakia Ring. Of course, with plenty of cars in the entry list. We have divided, as always, the cars in 3 different groups. In race number 1, groups number A and B will be racing here on our beloved racetrack in Slovakia, and we have our racing drivers ready to kick things off. In race number 1, on pole position today is Teo Borenstein. The Dutch driver for Jenzer Motorsport has been on a tear this weekend. Qualifying was exceptional for him. He grabbed pole position and the fastest overall time across the 2 qualifying sessions. But watch out for second place on the starting grid. It will be Rechenmacher from Cram Motorsport in second position. He's been very good this season as well, and he is looking for that elusive race victory. It could be his first one in 2026. Should he be able to take things to the line in first place today? Of course, though, we will be having to look at the other drivers as well. We have 25 drivers on the starting grid today. And in third position, we have the championship leader, Elia Weiss. The German has been very good this year for Jenzer Motorsport. He's been fantastic in 2026. He looks to bag another podium finish, and if not, a potential victory as well. Fourth place on the starting grid is for Maffi, the German driver. She has been great as well in 2026. Of course, the sun is out, temperatures are very high, so the tires will be degrading quite quickly as well today. That is another factor, of course, that we have to take into account for race number 1, which is starting very shortly. The grid is still very full of people. We have plenty of fans and spectators out on track today. The sun is out. We're ready to watch the cars compete, and of course we're ready to commentate on the action here at the Slovakia Ring. See you very soon in the commentary booth. It is all from me here on the starting grid. See you guys in a bit. And just as quick, we are back in the commentary booth for race number 1 of Formula 4 Central European Zone in the 3rd round of this championship in 2026. We're getting ready to see the cars race out on track in anger for the first time at the Slovakia Ring this season after 2 very compelling race weekends across the start of this year. We were in Austria for the first couple of rounds at the Red Bull Ring and the Salzburgring, but we'll talk about them in a bit. First, we have the starting grid with Teo Borenstein and Rechenmacher on the front row of the grid. Elia Weiss, the championship leader, in 3rd position, and Matilda Parts in 4th. And then we have Markas Silkunas in 5th position. Of course, Lithuania being back on the starting grid and with plenty of firepower as well. Same goes for Italy, however, with Antonio Arrigo in 6th position. And then we have every single driver getting ready to compete in these first heat for Formula 4 CEZ. Of course, the format sees 3, let's call them qualifying races before the grand final, which we'll be happy to watch together on Sunday afternoon, where the top 32 drivers will be competing for the final points awarded in this race weekend. Points from the season are awarded to the top 15 drivers, a change in the format that sees even more drivers getting points at the end of each race. We're following the standard MotoGP style point system with 25 points being awarded to the winner, 20 points for second place, 16 for third, and so on until we reach 15th place, which will earn 1 crucial championship point. We have our cars ready on the starting grid. We have only the engineers left out on track as well, which means that we're getting ready to start things off for race number 1. We talked about Teo Borenstein while on the grid. He has been on a tear this weekend. Absolutely fire pace on Friday across free practice and qualifying. He was the only driver in qualifying to dip under the 2-minute 3-second time mark, with Borenstein setting a 2-minute 2 seconds .995 to claim pole position as well as the overall fastest time in qualifying. Rechenmacher will start on the front row of the grid alongside him. Borenstein will be on the left-hand side of the track, as you can see from these images right here, whereas the Cram Motorsport rival will be on the right-hand side on the front row, as we only have 1 minute left before we start the formation lap. Then it's Elia Weiss in third position and Matilda Patz in fourth for an all-German second row of the grid. Fifth place belongs to Marcus Circunas ahead of Antonio Rigo, with Georgi Zazov in 7th place and Eric Paulsen in 8th. And the top 10 is rounded out by Mio Ollert and Francesco Pio Coppola. As said previously, we have 25 drivers out on track. This is groups A and B put together. Race 2 will instead switch one of the two groups out, and we will be having groups B and C racing against one another, and then groups A and C will be fighting things over in race number 3, the groups being created by the final classification of qualifying, with people in positions 1, 4, 7, and so on being put in group number A. Drivers that have qualified in 2nd, 5th, 8th, and so on in group B, and then those who have finished in 3rd, 6th, 9th, and so on will be in group C. We have started the formation lap, and therefore we are officially getting ready for race number 1. And this is the perfect opportunity to talk about the lovely racetrack that is the Slovakia Ring, situated in the heart of Slovakia, just 30 kilometers away from Bratislava. A 5.9 kilometer circuit boasting 14 corners, 7 to the right and 7 to the left. It is quite a recent racetrack, being opened just in 2009, but it has hosted a plethora of championships, especially in the Central European zone. Of course, this weekend is the most important one for the circuit, hosting the FIA European Truck Racing Championship, alongside, of course, plenty of other series such as Formula 4 CEZ, TCR European Endurance, and the GTC Endurance Challenge. It is a track that has hosted plenty of championships of great importance over the past few years. Of course, in the TCR world, we've had the WTCR Race of Slovakia, with the World Championship coming here for 7 years, and then plenty of other series. Not as much open wheel action as maybe we thought, but of course F4 CEZ proving that statement wrong, as we've had plenty of iconic races over the past few seasons here at the Slovakia Ring with this championship. A championship that has grown massively in numbers in 2026. We've gone from a maximum of 28 cars in 25 to a minimum of 40 full season entries this year. The popularity of the Formula 4 CEZ Championship has literally exploded in the last couple of seasons, and it is only due to the incredible hard work of the organizers and, of course, the importance of this championship, which has grown quite massively after producing some great talents over the past few years. And we have some right here on our starting grid, starting off with our championship leader, Elia Weiss. He has been on the podium in any race he's entered this year in F4 CEZ. 5 races competed, with 3 wins, a 2nd place and a 3rd place for the 16-year-old who is about to turn 17 in, or just under a couple of weeks. He is also one of the drivers that has the most amount of experience in this car, having competed in Italian F4 in 2025 with Cram Motorsport, and now switching over to Jenzer for his maiden Formula 4 CEZ campaign. He will be starting off from 3rd position, but meanwhile we have someone stopped out on track. That is not ideal, especially given the fact that we were getting ready to start things off. That is very unfortunate for what looks to be Bene Gaspar, but we'll get back to you on that as soon as we can. As we can see, all the drivers lining up on the grid, at least for the top 10 that is, with Teo Borenstein on pole position, just in front of Rechenmacher with the Cram Motorsport entry. The green flag has been waved, but as we were expecting, an extra formation lap will be needed, given the stranded F4 car that was in the middle sector, and therefore we are not underway for race number 1, at least in green flag conditions. We need one more formation lap, which was to be expected given this situation right here. The marshals already working hard to remove the stranded car, and as the graphics tell us, we have an extra formation lap officially now being put in place, and therefore we will just have to wait a little bit longer before we see some great flag racing here in Slovakia for round number 3 of the season. This is an incredible chance to talk about some of the drivers, such as, of course, Teo Borenstein. He is on pole position and has won the opening race of the season at the Red Bull Ring. He has finished on the podium twice more, taking 2nd position in between the Red Bull Ring and the Salzburgring, once per race weekend. And then unfortunately had to miss out on points in the final race in the opening round at the Red Bull Ring after fighting for the win there too. He is currently in 4th in the championship, behind, of course, Elia Weiss, and 2 other drivers being Walther and Max Karhan. The 2 of them, however, will be racing later on today, as they are part of Group C and therefore are not competing in this first race. It is not going to hamper them, however, given that every single group will race twice across the entire weekend before the final race, where only the top 32 drivers will qualify for, which is then the absolute perfect way to finish off the weekend. That will come later on Sunday, as the cars are now going up and down the hill that is between turns 12 and 13, which means that we are getting ready to see them line up once more on the starting grid. This is, of course, quite tricky of a situation to handle, especially for these young drivers who have to stay very calm and concentrated. Drivers usually love a routine, and therefore having an extra formation lap isn't always the best thing. Of course, they will have gathered that from the starting lights communicating to them that the official start was aborted, but here go all the drivers towards the start finish line once more, with Teo Borenstein in 1st position, and then right behind him the Cram Motorsport entry, driven by the German Rechenmacher. Germany, of course, having a huge tradition in racing and starting to pick that back up once more, with championship leader Elia Weiss also lining up in 3rd place. But we look to be ready to go this time around for F4 CEZ, as the green flag is waved once more, and this time we do see the red lights coming on. The lights do go out, and we are underway here for race number 1 of F4 CEZ. Immediately a couple of cars have stalled on the grid. It isn't the case for our race leader Teo Borenstein, who has kept 1st position But watch out for Rechenmacher now as he goes around the outside into turn number 1, and that is actually Elia Weiss, the championship leader, having a huge start from third on the grid. Meanwhile, there's a car off on the gravel, and that's Bien Cesari in car number 12. Not the best start for the Maffi racing driver, who looks to be able, however, to rejoin perhaps the track as he navigates the gravel trap in his Maffi Racing F4 car. Meanwhile, we go towards turn number 3. We're itching to see who will be the first one to get there, as the entire group now goes towards turn number 3, and it is Teo Borenstein still in the lead, thanks to a great start and an even better second half of it, thanks to his defensive work into turn number 1 over his teammate Elia Weiss, who has now dropped from second position, as it looks like Mathilda Parts has risen into that place. But meanwhile, we have plenty of fights going on, especially at the back end of the field. But unfortunately, we have Alexandre Lousa, the Brazilian, stopped in the gravel trap. Such a shame for the Cram Motorsport driver, who has looked pretty quick this weekend, but unfortunately his race is over almost before it started, and we have the safety car out on track once more this season. We have another car in the wall, and that is an unfortunate end to their race as well, together with Alexandre Lousa, unfortunately, who's also out of contention. Definitely on the start they wanted. Let's see a replay of that. Almost contact between a couple of cars that has put them out of contention. But you can also see it from a different angle. Such a shame. That looked to be Igor Polak, the Polish driver from Maffi Racing. You can see the damage on the front suspension that has put him out of contention for this race. Definitely a shame for the Pole, who had looked quite competitive across the first few races of the season, taking points in 3 occasions, all of them at the Red Bull Ring. Unfortunately for him, however, no points will be waiting for him here at the Slovakia Ring, as the safety car is now out on track, as the marshals wait for their opportunity to recover the stranded cars in the second sector. This is a great opportunity to have a look at the classifications once more, as we're waiting for them to come up on our timesheets. And we do have the cars now driving past the place where the other 2 drivers are stranded. But so far so good for Teo Borenstein. He's still in the lead, car number 20 up top, with Mathilda Parts in second position and Simon Rechenmacher down to third. Elia Weiss was looking to be fighting for the lead, but unfortunately for him, the fight with Borenstein saw him drop down to 4th, with Marcras Silcunas in 5th and Antonio Rigo in 6th position. It was a great start for the other Italian, Francesco Pio Coppola, who has moved up to 8th, with Piotr Orchowski in 9th and Jorge Bruno in 10th position. The last points paying positions, meanwhile, held by František Nemec in 14th and Viktor Poulsen in 15th. As of the 2026 season, in fact, points are awarded to the top 15 drivers. Meanwhile, speaking of 15, car number 15 with Alexandre Lousa is now being recovered by the marshals. The Brazilian is about to be safely out of the car. A shame for him, really. One of the future stars of Brazilian motorsport. He has finished in the points in 4 of the 5 races he's entered, with a best result of 12 in the second race at the Salzburgring, a track where we were racing at last week. Meanwhile, here is the replay of the start, when Cesari found the gravel in turn number 1, and here is the contact that put out of contention both Igor Polak and Alexandra Loza. Here you can see Polak's car with the damaged suspensions at the front. This will be a pretty difficult repair job for Maffi Racing. Of course, one of the most decorated teams in the championship's history, together with Jenzer Motorsport, as the two Swiss outfits have made this championship their own basically in the last few seasons. Of course, however, we should not forget the Italian rising stars that are Cram Motorsport, especially with Simon Rechenmacher this year taking 3 podium places and podium finishes, I should say, in 5 races. He's never gone past 3rd, however, as his best result, and he was looking to improve on that today, but he is currently in that exact 3rd position after dropping from 2nd to 3rd at the start. On the other hand, it was a phenomenal getaway for Matilda Parts. She is currently 10th in the driver standings with 39 points, never outside the top 12, and just off her best result at the Salzburgring, where she finished in 5th position. She has been on the F4 CEZ podium once, and that was at the Red Bull Ring last year, when she finished 2nd in the 3rd and final race. She's also had plenty of experience in other championships, such as Italian F4 and this season specifically F1 Academy, racing for Prema and doing a phenomenal job, especially in Canada, the last round of the championship that was held a couple of weeks ago, when she finished on the podium twice, winning race 2 and finishing 3rd in race number 1. And she is definitely looking like a prime threat to Teo Borenstein's lead in the race. I'm expecting the safety car to stay out maybe for one more lap, as the marshals are still recovering the stranded 3 cars that were put out of contention for this race early on. But after that, we'll be getting ready to start once more. The official race duration was shortened from 25 to 22 minutes, given the extra formation lap. But with only 14 minutes now left on the clock, it will be more than a sprint race to the finish line, especially given the race. Safety cars still are on track, with Teo Borenstein and Matilda Parts up front. The German driver, of course, trying to figure out where she could attack the Jenzer Motorsport driver in front once the safety car comes back in. Meanwhile, race control saying that the incident at the start is under investigation, the one that has put out of contention both Igor Polak and Alexandra Loza, which happened into turn 3, and unfortunately saw both drivers retire after just a couple of meters. And the same can be said for the incident into turn number 1 that saw Cesari, the pole, retire after literally less than 20 seconds of racing. But unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes in races as close as these ones. As we now look at the clock, with just a little over 12 minutes to go, we could be getting ready for a restart here with Teo Borenstein, Matilda Parts and Simon Rechenmacher in the top 3. It's been a good getaway behind them for Francesco Piocoppola as well. We were talking about him before, rising from 10th to 8th in the standings. Meanwhile, the best Italian is Antonio Rigo in 6th, just behind Marcus Silcunas. the Lithuanian having a great season so far, sitting in 6th position in the driver's standings. Still looking for his first podium finish. And meanwhile, we do see confirmation that the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. And therefore, it will be all on Teo Borenstein to lead the field away for the restart. Will he choose to wait for the very final few meters before the start finish line, or will he go early to try and surprise Matilda Paz? He looks to be waiting so far. They could try and surprise his rival right through turn number 13. And that seems to be the case, judging by the engine revs going up, and that is exactly what happened with Matilda Paz being slightly unprepared as Simon Rechenmacher looks super close to the back of her car. Could he muster up a move up the inside, but there's almost contact possibly with Matilda Paz spinning out on the start finish straight, and she is down the order. Disaster for the German, who has now dropped plenty of places. Something must have happened there for car number 18, as Matilda is now dropped to the back of the grid, promoting Simon Rechenmacher to 2nd position and Elia Weiss into 3rd. The car's now moving towards turn number 3. Teo Borenstein is still in the lead, with Elia Weiss now looking to be on the attack on Simon Rechenmacher. Especially into turn number 3, they seem to be very close to one another, as car number 22 was on the attack on his rival, and the championship leader has in fact moved into 2nd position. You can see him now just in front of Rechenmacher, with Markas Šilkūnas in 4th. The Lithuanian looking for his first podium finish of the season. Could happen right here at the Slovakia Ring in these next 10 minutes. Well, we're going to have to wait and see for that. But so far so good for him, as he's moved up into 4th after Matilda Paz spun on the restart. Such an unfortunate end to her podium hopes and dreams. She was actually fighting for the race win up until that point, with Teo Borenstein now up into 1st with a 7/10 gap over his teammate, who will definitely have to watch out for Simon Rechenmacher, as the Cram Motorsport driver will have the slipstream of his opponent towards turn number 1, but the same can be said for Markas Šilkūnas behind him. The pack move towards turn number 1, with Borenstein having to defend from Elia Weiss, the championship leader, who has been on a 5-race podium streak. Well, he's actually on a 2-race win streak at the moment, having won both races he's competing in at the Salzburgring last week. We were supposed to have a final race on the Austrian racetrack as well, but unfortunately that was cancelled due to heavy rain and strong winds that made it impossible for our drivers to race in safe conditions, which is why that race was ultimately cancelled. Weiss was supposed to start on pole in that race as well. Meanwhile, we have a look at Matilda Paz trying to gain some positions back after her spin at the restart. It will be very interesting to see what happened there, but unfortunately for her, it looks to be all over in the fight for the podium. At least she may rescue some points, as she is currently in 20th, and the top 15 drivers are eligible to score points, but she was definitely hoping for something more out of this race. Meanwhile, we see Simon Rechenmacher almost up the inside of Elia Weiss in kind of an unexpected manner into what is turn number 10 and 11. He looked to the inside in the little chicane that brings the drivers up the hill towards the second to last corner. And now Rechenmacher is up the inside into turn number 13, and car number 3 moves into second position. Therefore, there's a change in what is the prime suspect to try and attack Teo Borenstein for the race win, with just 6.5 minutes to go. Let's see if Elia Weiss can muster up a move into turn number 1. He can't, and therefore he has to settle for 3rd, while also looking in his mirrors for Markas Shilkunas, who is currently into 4th. Behind him, Antonio Rigo is in 5th, with Mio Olert right behind him. And then it's Piotr Orchowski in 7th position. There's also a very interesting fight between Francesco Pio Coppola and David Gorcica for 8th position. Meanwhile, outside of the points, Nikolai Dirved looks to be on the attack to try and get that 15th position from Victor Poulsen. But of course, the attention needs to stay on the top 4, who are in a space of just 1.9 seconds. Simon Rechenmacher just set the fastest lap of the race with 2 minute 3.8, just a tenth faster than Teo Borenstein up front, highlighting just how competitive the top 4 really are. They are on the same pace with each other, making it for a very interesting race so far. With now just 5 minutes and change left on the clock, Teo Borenstein looking to have everything under control at the moment, but of course plenty of factors could still come into play. One of them is tire wear, of course. The Slovakia Ring is known to have high degradation. Meanwhile, speaking of tires, there was a lockup into turn number 13, and plenty of fights going on at the tail end of the points paying positions. That was Victor Poulsen in car number 77, looking to fight with Michalina Sabaj and Leo Nilsson. And right behind them there's also Matilda Paz, who's trying to desperately climb back into the top 15 after her spin from 2nd position. Here we go in towards turn number 1, and that is Michalina Sabaj overtaken by Victor Poulsen, who has moved back into 15th position. Sabaj has dropped outside of the points paying positions now, and is now under attack from Nikolai Dirved, a driver who has finished on the podium in this series a couple of years ago. Of course, the same can be said for Michalina Sabaj. As we said before, as you can see, plenty of fights going on at the tail end of the points paying positions. Not happy with his 15th place, Victor Poulsen, as he looks to go up the inside, but that is also Michalina Sabaj working hard to attack Leo Nilsson and take that position. Meanwhile, behind, Matilda Paz is up the inside of Nikolai Dirved and taking 17th place away from the Danish driver, as the German now moves up into 17th. Up front, there's no change in the top 4, with Teo Borenstein still on top with 9/10 of a gap over Simon Rechenmacher, and a little over 2 seconds on Elia Weiss. The group starting to filter out a bit, with gaps becoming slightly bigger. There's a big gap between 4th and 5th as well, with Antonio Rigo having to break the slipstream from Mio Olert. That could be a fight ready to pick up, with the Swedish driver for SG Motors looking to move from 6th into 5th. Speaking of making moves, that is Matilda Paz once more, this time on Victor Poulsen for 16th position. She makes the move stick. And up next is Michalina Sabaj, the IS Motorsport driver from Poland, in the final points paying position. Can Matilda Paz retake 15th round the outside? She looks to be very confident in her car and in her pace as well. She seems mighty quick, as she did in the first half. Unfortunately though, that spin on the start finish line during the safety car restart was enough to extinguish her hopes and dreams for a podium finish. Plenty of battles going on inside the top 15 as well. That is Mia Ohlert, as we said before, looking for a move on Antonio Rigo, with Piotr Orcholski overtaking both of them actually to move into 5th place. Here you see the black and green car, the number 35 for Harp Racing, as the pole has moved into the top 5, with Antonio Rigo dropping to 6th and Mia Ohlert dropping to 7th. But they have a huge company behind, with Francesco Pio Coppola, David Gorczyca and Erik Poulsen from 8th to 10th right behind them as well, with just 1 minute and 15 seconds left on the clock right this second. Up front, Teo Borenstein still in the lead. Simon Rechenmacher in second, having retaken P2 from Elia Weiss a couple of laps ago. Marcus Silkunas also in the fight, though he has dropped back a tad bit. He is 1.5 seconds behind Elia in the fight for the podium. Speaking of the fight for the podium, we have a fight for the win brewing up, as Simon Rechenmacher looks to be quite close to Theodor Borenstein. We saw Borenstein waving on the start-finish straight to try and break the slipstream effect. Simon Rechenmacher doing his best to try and affect Borenstein's concentration on what is, as you can see from the graphic, the last lap of this first race of the weekend. With Teo Borenstein still holding on strong. Behind them, Elia Weiss, the championship leader, will be happy to take 3rd after a very exciting race with plenty of on-track action. Whereas Marcus Silkunas will be slightly disappointed to miss out on a podium once more, but still happy with his best result in 2026 for a second consecutive 4th place. Of course, should these be the final standings, as Rechenmacher moves an inch closer to Theodor Borenstein as we enter the final sector of this race. Can he make something happen towards turns number 13 and 14? Could this actually be a drag race to the line, as Borenstein will have to defend into turn 13. Rechenmacher will probably try to get the faster sweeping line on the outside of the penultimate corner. The two seem divided by absolutely nothing as they reach the final few meters of the race, and as the checkered flag flies by, it is Teo Borenstein with a phenomenal finish to take the win by just a 1/10 of a second over Simon Rechenmacher. Unfortunately for him, there wasn't enough space to move up the inside. Maybe just one more lap would have done it for the German, but it was unfortunately not good enough from him to take the race win, and therefore Simon Rechenmacher is in fact having to settle for 2nd position, as Teo Borenstein takes the win in race number 1 here at the Slovakia Ring, his 2nd victory of the season after taking the winning spoils at the Red Bull Ring in the opening race of 2026. And this is definitely a boost to his championship hopes, as the championship leader Elia Weiss comes home in 3rd, losing then 9 points from Borenstein. But of course, Weiss can be happy with 3rd place. Marcus Silkunas finishes in 4th, with Piotr Orkowski in 5th position. Great race for the Polish talent who's racing for Harp Racing. Antonio Rigo in 6th position, just in front of David Gorczyca, with Erik Poulsen, Georgi Jazov and Mia Ohlert rounding out the top 10. Jorge Bruno in 11th, with Mikalina Sabai capable of coming back up the order until reaching 12th position.
František Nemec in 13th ahead of Matilda Paz. She was fighting for the race win before a spin at the safety car restart dropped her out of the point system. She was able to climb back up to 14th, with Victor Poulsen rounding out the points paying position in 15th place. What an effort for Teo Borenstein then. He was capable of taking the win in race number 1. Here are the final race results. Let's not forget that we are not done with the on-track action on Saturday. Race number 2 scheduled to take place at 4:05 p.m. local time here at the Slovakia Ring, with groups A and C getting ready to fight for the race win in race number 3, which we'll be seeing on Sunday. Before that, of course, race number 2 with groups B and C fighting things over later this afternoon. Thank you for being with us. It was a pleasure to commentate this race with you, and I'll see you guys next time.